please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Jeff, can you please do roll call?
Todd Clements.
Yeah.
Erica Connor.
Here.
Mary DeMore.
Here.
Andy Mankey.
Here.
Art Schneider.
I am here.
Craig Verts.
Here.
Jeff Vokel here. Jill Werner.
Here.
Cherry Winchowski.
Excused. This is an open meeting and has been noticed as such. First up, we have citizens' comments.
There are none.
Okay. And next, we have Dan Narad. All right, from WASB is here.
So if you recalled last meeting, some of you had questions about the WASB consultant role and exactly what Dan would be doing for us. And so we have that contract again in your packet. And the contract, we have it down as an action item. So starting on page 7 to 14 is the contract, same as last time. And then the PowerPoint that Dan's going to go through is on pages 15 through 27. It's up on the screen right now. But Dan will introduce himself and share his background and talk a little bit about the process.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for having me here. I am now a consultant for Wisconsin Association of School Boards and doing different kinds of projects with different school boards that have an interest in engaging either in strategic planning. Sometimes it deals with, how should the board govern, and are there new ways for that board to be thinking about how they govern? But there's a whole array of services that WASB provides, and this is one of them. I want to be able to share, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each of those PowerPoint slides because you've had it and you'll have a chance to read it.
No, really, just go. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, right.
Not gonna stop.
I'm going to try to give you a break. But I do want to be able to make sure that you understand what this process is like and what my role would be in that process. Sean had explained that you had some questions about that. And so more than anything, I want to be able to come out of here with that type of discussion. And so, as I look at strategic planning, it is really taking a step back and you and your community identifying what your preferred future looks like. And it's really manifesting leadership through planning. It's a planning function, which is a proper function of a Board of Education, but it's really demonstrating that type of leadership that will help you take a step back and look at what is it that you want to commit to in terms of what your future would look like. I just want to explain a little bit about myself in terms of my background. I just completed my 43rd year in public education, 17 years as a superintendent of schools, serving in 3 school districts. The last one was not Birmingham, Alabama, it was Birmingham, Michigan. And I spent 6 years there after I left Madison in 2012. But in each one of those districts, I was actively engaged in strategic planning. A superintendent has a little different role because the superintendent, from both WSB's perspective as well as my experience, isn't a facilitator of strategic planning. You really need someone from the outside to guide the process, is the view. Not that it doesn't happen the other way at times, but I've been involved in numerous strategic plan development, serving as a superintendent. In terms of what I want to accomplish, I want to just be able to explain what this process looks like tonight. And what I really want to be able to emphasize is that this is a process that begins with an assumption that you're trying to define or redefine what the community's expectations are for the Mukwonago Area School District. And so it really has a couple of points in this process that are very stakeholder involved. You're one of the stakeholder groups, and my understanding is that you do have a clear interest in participating, and that's fine and proper. But it's really gathering those people that kind of represent this entire school district to try to say, who are we, and what do we want to be focusing on, and what do we hope to become, and what does our future really want to center on? And so I want you to kind of be thinking about that throughout this presentation. In this next slide, I'm emphasizing the importance of why strategic planning. And that is, you know, our bias, WSB's bias, as well as my personal bias, is that all organizations need to be about continuous improvement. You're always at a point in time where you're doing great things, you're doing good things, you're doing some things that are not as good as other things, and it's all about how do you get better. But what you oftentimes is needed is a process for determining what that looks like. And that's really why you want to think about engaging in a strategic planning process. Because what it does is it takes, again, that step back from the day-to-day work, your governing work, the administration's leadership work, and really takes a look at who we are and what do we aspire to be, and you do it in concert with your community, stakeholders. So what do you want to choose? Because what do you want to choose to do? Because the reality of it is, there are a lot of things to choose to do in education, and there's a lot of good and proper things to choose. But what are those things that you want to choose to do to emphasize over the next 3 to 5 years? So again, strategic planning represents a process to help you define that. Definition out of the model that we're using in WSB is by an author by the name of Yui. The process of creating a long-range mission, vision, goals, and strategies is called strategic planning. And it really has a dual focus on both the what is the purpose of your school district, and what direction do you want to take, and as well as the how. What are the strategies and goals that you want to have? So the process will focus on both of those. Now this is where I'm going back to emphasizing the importance of stakeholder process. It purposely seeks representation of the various stakeholder groups within the community. And you get to define who those are in whatever categories that you want to define, and I know your superintendent is doing that work. Board and administration is involved with the planning to the degree that you want to be involved with the planning. But I can't emphasize enough, developing the plan is one thing, but you need to be thinking right from the beginning about how you live the plan. Because what my encouragement for you would be that if this doesn't become kind of the life work of the organization, not that there won't be other things that you'll be focusing on, you know, new laws, new requirements, new crises that come up or whatever, but creating the plan is one thing, living the plan is another thing. The deployment really becomes very, very important. So what does get created through this process, and it's a fairly limited process, and one of the things that we like to say is you're not committing yourself to a lifetime sentence of strategic planning, but you are committing to a process that would arrive at a plan and would be able to put into motion those kind of things that will allow you to implement it in a good way. But I do want to emphasize, because I know you had some questions, is the facilitator guides the process. And if you, again, through your action, if you choose to work with WSB, you know, I would be assisting you in guiding that process. This is in no way my strategic plan. I don't come with any content. I come with experience. I come with hopefully some expertise. But you need to look at what I'll be doing as facilitation in concert with you and in concert with your superintendent and his staff. But the key role is to make sure that you have those key stakeholder groups involved throughout. I've already emphasized enough, this is more than just a plan. It's as much about engagement and listening to the community as it is about what gets put into the plan. And my bias is this, having gone through strategic planning, and not every one of my experiences have always you know, been totally positive in the main, and overall they've been very positive. But in the end, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to also look at what, through this process, how can this work contribute to improving the district culture around the engagement theme? In terms of people feeling that they've had voice in the process, and people feeling that they've been heard through the process, and people feeling that while they may not have had every one of their ideas put into the plan, at least there's been their voice that's been put into the room. This work very much connects to some of the research about effective school boards, the key work of school boards. I won't go through that tonight, but every element of the strategic plan has pieces of that wheel that you see up there. Vision, accountability, policy, community leadership, community involvement, and relationship building. And the only thing I want to say about this plan, at the risk of being redundant, creating the plan is one thing. But what this helps us see is there are steps that the facilitator steps out. The facilitator's role is time limited in this process. And it's 5-6 meetings where we would bring the stakeholder, the steering committee together to work on developing the plan. But what's put into place to ensure that you're working towards those priorities that you've committed to is going to be key over the long haul. Again, stated a little differently, I do not want to be involved in a process that leads to a plan that just becomes another document, in someone's office. That doesn't serve you well, and it doesn't serve this community well, and it doesn't serve trust building well whatsoever. This is a little bit about those steps in the process. Again, community involvement. There'll be a steering committee, a planning committee. Key to a stakeholder involvement beyond the committee will be, there'll be a survey that will be sent out that will be widespread to get input in terms of people's expectations and ideas about the future of the education in this community. And there's a process that's built into this that will help you prioritize that data. Because one of the things that you'll find in any one of these processes, I have found, is ask and you shall receive. You're going to be getting a lot of input. But what you have to do through this facilitated process is to be able to focus on what are the priorities. I mean, what are the key messages that you want to be focusing on to improve the education of the kids that you serve here. And that's all built into the process. Sure.
So the survey, is that created by the steering committee as well?
Well,
Or do you have some sort of thing that you are bringing with you?
yeah, there is a survey that is part of this model. But in the first meeting, that survey will be introduced and reviewed by the committee. And then in the second meeting, we'll confirm that survey. And so what you,
So it can be altered by
it
the...
can be altered.
Okay.
Surely it can be altered. But we'll start with at least what this model recommends
outline, okay.
for a survey. And then between the second and third meeting, the survey will be out there. And then there's a process that I'll help you with to be able to analyze all that data. I mean, there'll be a lot of data. And I'll just show you one little bit of slide in a minute. But it's recommended to be a 2 to 6 month process, 5 to 6 meetings, 3-hour meetings, about 2 to 3 hour meetings. And to be able to create a plan that you can live with, and I'll explain what I mean by that, over the next 3 to 5 years. And live with, what I mean by that is you really, for this process to really work, you want to have an annual update. And we can talk about what that can look like later. But you want to be able to look at this as flexible, a breathing document, a living document, because things will occur and it may shift what you think your priorities should be. Now, you shouldn't be changing your entire plan every year. I would never advise that. But you want to be able to have a process that allows you to monitor and adjust along the way. The steering committee, again, is comprised of representative groups in the committee. We're going to look for active participation. The process absolutely works on ensuring that people's voices get put in the room. Where community members interact with the board and staff to help determine the priority strategic initiatives. And then the survey of citizens is a foundational piece of this work. All the next 2 slides do is kind of lay out the different groups you should be thinking about, both for the steering committee as well as for the survey. You want to make sure that the survey is out there within all the groups that you serve within the school district. So that, I won't go through each of the groups, but it just kind of lays out who you want to tap into to make sure that they're on the steering committee or that they're certainly getting a chance to complete the survey. You're going to be able to get multiple data sets off this survey, and it's really aimed at hearing the voice of community members, whether it's students, whether it's people that serve in organizations, whether it's parent organizations. It's really intended to be broad-based. This is a sample of a tool that's used in this method to be able to take that data and to define priorities within it. It's called the Pareto chart. Tonight's not about kind of getting into all that, but it's a way to take all that data and to say, what are really what are the loudest messages or the loudest themes in that data that we should be focusing on? This model has the formal document created by the local, the senior administrative team. But that obviously will be reviewed by you as a board. It will also be reviewed by the steering committee. But the drafting of the strategies, goals and strategies really is left, the initial draft of that with the leadership team. You as a board are asked to formally adopt the strategic plan. And this is where I was mentioning progress towards goals should be monitored by the administration and the school board in a timely and consistent manner. There are tools that this model will suggest about how to do that on an ongoing basis. So again, creating the plan is one thing. Living into the plan is another thing. You want to live into this plan as well as you possibly can. And then you want to have that annual update, and you want to be able to publish progress towards reaching the various goals in the plan. This next slide merely lays out the agenda, main topics in each of the 5, 6 meetings. I won't go through those in any detail tonight, but in the first meeting, obviously, we're focusing on a presentation about what is this district. And the superintendent has been asked to compile data with his staff to be able to explain to the entire group, you know, how are our kids doing in essence, and what is the school district all about. We'll then introduce the survey in part of that first meeting, and then we'll also begin a process that, I don't know if you're familiar with what's called a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This shifts to a little different model with that. It's not a SWOT, it's called a SOAR. It's strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results. It's intended to have more kind of a positive frame as you think about, you know, what are our perceptions about our strengths, what opportunities sit out there, what do we aspire to be, and what results do we hope to accomplish for our kids. But those are the 5, 6 meetings. I do want to talk, and I'll try to wind this up quickly because I know you have a full agenda, about board member roles, and this really is board member and the leadership team role. And it's a little bit of a nuanced role, and I'm absolutely convinced that having had board members involved in every one of the processes I've been involved with, that there's good ways to do this work. But I believe your role and the administration roles is a little bit nuanced because you want to be able to bring your perspective in the room, but that has to be balanced with the idea of ensuring that the full arc gets heard, if I can use that metaphor. And the other thing is that I also have a view that if there is objection that you have as a board in terms of how this plan is being constructed, in terms of the content of it, the focus, that it's better for you to express that along the way. Because if you're in the room, and it sounds like you want to do that, and I think that's a great thing. You want to be able to be a participant and involved in active listening all at the same time. And you don't want surprises on the back end, because one of the things that I feel very strong about, this overall process should be a trust-building process. And you know, I think you probably do a lot of great things right now to focus on trust building in the district. But it's really a trust-building process, and then, oh, by the way, you have a good plan that you're going to live into over the next 3 to 5 years. But that trust can be kind of eroded by, if there are objections to the plan, and they get expressed through your governing role at the end. So I'm just wanted to walk through that with you a little bit so you can be thinking about that. And do know that there are good ways for you to be involved in this entire process. In the end, I mentioned this is not the facilitator's plan. This is really your plan. This is the district's strategic plan. And so you want to have voice in it. You should have voice in it. You also have to ensure that the other group, the stakeholders, have voice in it. And that if there are concerns that you're gathering as a group, that not to create surprises on the back end is my message around that. So there are some subtleties.
Dan,
Yes.
I can assure you that this group is very good at letting us know concerns right away. They won't wait.
I thought you were going to say how subtle we are.
Oh, yeah.
Active listening is what I was
Sean, is
thinking.
this Elkmount, is this the final version or the end game for Elkmount?
Oh, Dan, I don't know if I shared that with you. You gave us some sample
Right.
strategic plans,
Right.
and Elk Mound was one of them.
Right.
And so Craig's question is, would that be something that this strategic plan would end up something similar to that?
The content is entirely up to you. I mean, other plans can help inform what you want in your plan. The format is one that you're going to need to decide. And And so if you like one format or you don't like another format, we really should look at that fairly early on, so staff can be thinking about, developing that plan document in a way that meets your needs on the back end. WSB, those plan samples are relatively brief. And I'll tell you, in my experience, they're much briefer than what, I was personally used to. I think they can be fine. But again, I want to make sure that not only is the planning process good, but that you have a plan document that reflects what you want. So at some point in time, we should check in on that. We should have some discussion about what are your expectations for the plan. But if that's one that you value and the whole group of you value that, because I don't know how you feel about Elk Mound, but if that's one that you value, that's one that we can look at using. They're there just as samples for you to kind of think about what those plans can look like.
So I included the Elk Mound one in your folder tonight. Dan also shared one from Birmingham in Michigan, and that's a lengthier one, and I can share that one with you too. I didn't include it in the packet or in the folder tonight, but I'll send that to you via email.
And for whatever it's worth, my bias is towards finding some middle ground on all that. That plan that we developed in Birmingham, I think I can absolutely tell you that it represented the stakeholder's voice, but it became so voluminous and it became so unwieldy in terms of kind of the management around the plan. So the question is, are those other plans enough to allow you to know what the priorities are? And so in no way am I suggesting, when Sean shares that you should adopt that format, because there are problems with that format.
So was it large because they were overly detailed and specific, or that they were shooting at everything and anything?
No, I wouldn't say it was that, because it was a reasoned conversation, but it got very detailed. And
So they were just,
it doesn't need to be that
this has to be
detailed.
this to be that. and-
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it doesn't need to be that detailed.
Question
Sure.
about your background.
Sure.
So are you an employee of WASB, or are you a consultant to them and then to us?
Well, technically I am an employee. I'm not a full-time employee.
Okay.
All the work, there's 5 or 6 retired superintendents that are doing this work with WSB.
Okay, so that's my question. So you retired.
I retired.
How long ago were you in the school system?
I was in my last position until July 1.
Okay, very recent.
And then our plan was always to come back to Wisconsin. As much as we did like the community we were living in, our roots were all here.
And of the plans that were suggested in here, were you part of all of those or any of those?
No, I was not. Those are different consultants that would have done
Okay.
that, because I've just kind of stepped into WSB's
Okay.
work about 4 months ago.
So are we your first one?
Strategic plan, yes. Yeah,
Now you know why there's 3-hour meetings, Joe.
yeah.
We have a rookie.
But you stated you were a superintendent in 3 different
I've been
strategic
involved
plans.
in strategic planning
Right.
my whole superintendent
Okay.
career.
In the
It was a different
superintendent
role.
role.
But
Right.
I was a member in the room, but I can tell you that I know the strategic planning process. This is a little different model than what I was used to, but it's not drastically different.
Right.
It's not at all drastically different.
You were just a lot less important.
So Laura's making a copy of the Birmingham plan right now, and she'll have that for you in a couple minutes.
And then I'll just wind this up real quickly for you. Again, this is, that urging you to understand there's more than just the plan development. So this is Deming's model about plan, do, study, act. It's just one way to kind of think through what comes after the plan. These are plans. This tool here is a monitoring tool that you may want to use to help monitor the progress. I have other tools that you can also use that will help you lay out who's responsible, what results you're trying to accomplish, what action needs to be taken. So I'm just trying to tell you there are tools that will help with the monitoring of the implementation of the plan. These are plans that WSB has developed with school districts around the state. And it's just part of the service that WSB offers. They do a number of things relative to helping school boards with their work, and helping boards and superintendents work well together, and helping school boards develop strategic plans. So I'll stop with that just to see if you have any other questions.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
I got none.
Okay.
Thank Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Appreciate your time greatly, and thank you for what you do.
Move on to consent agenda. We have approval of the board minutes of February 11th, 2019. Approval of vouchers numbers 121-237 to 121-635 in the amount of 1.8 million and change, and extended field trips, MHS Save, PVMS Scandinavia, and PVMS Costa Rica. Do I have any questions or concerns regarding those?
I think last month, someone had a question about one of the trips and how many chaperones would be.
Oh, yeah, I
And
just wanted it
in
written
Nick's
down.
memo,
Yep.
he has addressed that.
Yep.
And so, was that your question,
Yeah,
Mary?
that was mine.
Okay.
All right, hearing none, it's approved by consent. On to action items, resignations, retirements, and appointments.
So if we take a look at page 4, we do have some retirements to announce tonight, and we're very happy for these people. If you take a look at these 5 individuals, you will see that combined they have 143 years of service to the district. Some really outstanding people. We're very happy that they're going to retire, and we wish them the best of luck, but we're going to be very sad. So Roxanne Carloni, one of our orchestra teachers, is retiring after 39 years in the Mugwanago School District. Lisa Chase, 5th grade teacher at Prairie View, 18 years of service in the district. Mary Beth Halstetter, she's retiring from Big Bend, special education instructor, and she's been with us for 33 years. Charlotte Colby, our choir instructor at MHS, is retiring after 21 years in the district. And then Lori Wagner, another grade school teacher at Prairie View, 4th grade, 32 years in the district. So really some outstanding people, and they will be missed, but we want to congratulate them on that decision to retire.
And I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. All right,
And then we do have one appointment, Nicole Pinzer, who will be with us in the special education department, and she's going to be at Rolling Hills, and that's just for the remainder of the year due to high numbers. Actually, we had a full-time teacher at sharing a position between Rolling Hills and Section, and because of the higher numbers at both those schools, we moved her, one of the teachers, to Section full-time, and then we hired Nicole for the remainder of the year at Rolling Hills.
do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
All right, who wants the second? All right, Jill. All right, all those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. All right, motion carries. All right, Prairie View Elementary 4K.
So I have a brief memo on page 5, and then we also have Stephanie Blue, principal from Prairie View, here tonight, and Sue Perkins. Both of them are involved in our 4K program, so they're here to answer any questions that you might have. But if you recall, last month I explained that St. Paul's was closing their school, and that means that we were looking for a community partner in the northwestern portion of our district. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of options. We did make a contact, and we weren't able to get a community partner in that area. So we're recommending that we go to Prairie View and bring our 4K program into the school. So we would have an AM section and a PM section, and we would also explore the wraparound daycare at Prairie View Elementary for next school year.
All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Where does the cost come to if you have to hire your own employee with the benefits and everything versus what we're paying at a community partner?
Yeah, so it probably, because we will be hiring the 4K teacher, it probably will be a little bit more, but not a significant difference between what we're paying. Tom, do you have an idea on the difference?
Off the top of my head, I don't have it right now, but I'll echo that. I can follow up and give that information to the board. Let you all know.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, we did not learn of the school closing until very late. Registration has started already. a number of people have registered for St. Paul's, and now we're sort of in a jam, and thus we are looking to get this approved tonight so we can move forward with planning and let those parents know that they do have a
Right.
4K spot for next school year.
And this is for this coming year. As of now, it's a one-year plan.
As right now, we're planning for
Okay.
1 year.
All right.
Obviously, if it's highly
In case
successful.
there's another, right.
Mhm.
But I know that's why we're keeping with the community with the costs and things like that. So,
Right, we're very
as well
happy
as
with.
that area is growing and,
Right, and we're very
So-
happy with the community partnerships that we have throughout the district. Just, it's limited in that area.
right.
I have another question, just to piggyback off what Art said from a cost standpoint. So, obviously, there will be costs involved with the education in addition just to the teachers. So like, supplies, whatever, I mean, is that all absorbed within your current budget?
So Stephanie and Sue can answer that a little bit. Just for example,
Is it
the,
something that Tom's gonna have to change some things in the budget for us to approve, or is it insignificant and you just manage it within your parameters of what you already have?
For the way that we make budgets happen for at the school-based level, so the principal at McGuanago High School or the principal at Prairie View Elementary, we have a per pupil amount that we allocate for supplies and all other expenses that are basically non-personnel and non-employee benefits. So I budget for all the people and all their benefits. We will establish a 4K amount for the students that go to Prairie View to make sure it's something that can be done. When we started we started an early childhood classroom there this past year. And when we expanded the number of 5K classrooms, we do establish a certain amount of money as startup costs to make sure that it can happen. But it does tie into the question that Todd asked and that you're asking right now.
but as far as the curriculum materials, the
Right.
materials that are at St. Paul's right now are ours.
There are,
And so those will be transferred to Prairie View.
so there's minimal changes other than personnel.
Roughly, how many 4K students do we have, or this year in St. Paul's? Are we,
I believe they have 2 AM sections at St. Paul's this year, and Stephanie, Sue, how many? Do you have that off the top of your head?
okay. Okay.
And
So-
what are we capable of taking with the morning and afternoon, 40? Okay. All right. Because you might find that it's even more popular, so.
Do you have a picture in your head of what this looks like? It just says we're looking for a community partner for that wraparound daycare. Like, do you have a vision, or is it kind of like, whatever we can make happen, we make happen?
No, we've definitely discussed some options, with our current, program that does our before and after school care.
Okay.
So the YMCA provides before and after school care at Prairie View, so we'll be having a conversation with them. We didn't want to get too far out
Yeah.
in front of you guys,
Yeah.
so we thought we better get approval here first before we start those conversations.
Okay. All right, anyone else?
So we're in a rush, but we also didn't want to, we wanted your blessing first.
We're good. All right, did I get a motion? I don't even remember.
It-
Yeah,
we
we
did.
got a
Okay.
first and a second.
Yeah.
All right.
All those in.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, the 17-18 audit report.
Okay, so the Finance and Facilities Committee met at 6:30 tonight. Chuck Krieger, our auditor from Hawkins Ash CPAs, called in and walked the committee through the financial statements. We have those posted to our website for the public to take a look at those and review those at any time. I guess, did anybody on the Finance and Facilities Committee want to share with the board what we discussed? I detected, Chuck didn't share any concerns about anything that was material or even immaterial that was something that should be brought to your attention. So I think everything is going good. That's it.
Well, that's good. All right, I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed, no? There we go. All right, substitute teacher compensation.
Can we do the WASB proposal? We
Oh,
need to get that
I whipped right
approved.
past it. Sorry, WASB.
So again, that contract's on pages
Yep.
7 through 14.
All right, I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Can we talk cost?
Can we talk cost?
Can we talk cost?
Yeah.
How much is this gonna cost?
So it's on page,
Or was there any-
I'm
I
trying to
wasn't even
find,
looking.
I'm sorry. So, page 14, so,
And that's assuming we don't get into
Oh, there
any
it is.
detailed financial facilities stuff. So this is more curriculum, student achievement driven. I mean, it doesn't get into building
Buildings,
changes
no.
or anything like that. And are we okay with that?
so the range is 7 to 9,500, and the 9,500 would be closer if he's heavily involved in, like what Jill said, and also in the writing the plan.
Well,
But as far as, are we going to be delving into details about changing facilities? That really, I don't know, that's up to you
I mean, I don't know if that's
guys.
supposed to be part of a strategic plan or not. I don't,
I think there's some that has to be done with Parkview,
Well, I
probably
know,
at least
that's
at
why
some
I'm
point, so
asking.
that would
Or
probably
is
have
that
to be
gonna be
somewhat part of a
part of
plan.
this discussion, and are we gonna, do we need to plan accordingly for that?
So I think
I would
the,
imagine it's gotta involve buildings if we're
so
expanding anything.
he wouldn't get involved in the details on how to change, let's say we
Yeah, no.
decided to change the enrollment areas for elementary schools. Not saying that we're doing that. Want to be clear on that, but that
Not saying
is a
that.
complex issue,
Mhm.
a very emotional issue, and there's a lot of work involved. Dan would not be involved in that, but this group, along with the community stakeholders, might say, yes, we need to do something about our elementary enrollment because we're going to be growing the next 10 years, and so we need to change the middle school. That would be one of the goals, and then we would be working on that the next 3 to 5 years, or we need to change the enrollment boundaries, like I said, for our elementary schools, and we would work on that. So the stakeholder committee decides what the goals are, and then the administration and others work on achieving those goals. So I don't know if that's the direction we'll go, but I'm willing to bet that there will be some conversation about space
Right.
and building capacity.
But even if we go down that path, we're not looking anytime I mean, I'm assuming we're looking at 5 years out at least. And in that point, we would have a strategic planning, another strategic planning meeting, like we did for the high school. That's what I'm assuming.
Well, and
So we can make it part
If
of
that
this
board
process, but
wanted
we're
to.
not delving into it. We're just saying,
as time goes on.
yes.
Should be looking at this on a regular basis as we move forward, so that goes beyond the initial 5 years, it'll
Mhm.
keep going,
Yes.
so.
So this isn't a prelude to any kind of a, referendum or anything like that, correct? This is not the plan, it's just a 5-year plan to figure out where we're going?
I mean,
Is that right?
Right.
That could be something that the committee looks at and when they're evaluating and see that may be something to consider, but that's not the intent of this.
Yeah, I think it's really important to make sure that we have open and honest discussions, and at this time, there's been no discussion about this strategic planning committee to be a pre-referendum committee. So we did have a referendum stakeholder committee, so and you guys were part of that 2015, 16, correct? So the election was in 2016. So that was already, the board said, yes, we're in a position now to explore a referendum. That's not this. So back then in 2015, that was the purpose for that community stakeholder committee.
Got it.
Citizens Committee, I'm trying to think the name of the committee. Art, you and Mary were on it?
Steering committee.
Steering
We just
committee,
call it a
right. That
steering
was the
committee.
purpose
Yep.
for that, to
Right.
explore a referendum. But that's not the purpose of this.
Good.
So would we discuss facilities and space and finances? Absolutely. But are we gonna have a goal to have a referendum in next year? No, I don't, but that's up to you guys. It really is a stakeholder-driven process. And so right now, We have over 30 people that are committed to be on that steering committee. We're really happy so far with the interest in the committee, and
So you sent out an invite, Sean?
we sent out several invites, yes. So we have 8 school board members, or 9 school board members. Todd, I didn't want to commit.
No, he's not relevant.
Come on,
So you're
Todd.
certainly
Got 2
welcome.
meetings
So we
left
have
and then
8 or 9 school board
Todd.
members. We have 4 people at the district office, and Tom and Susan, Nick and Tim, our directors. Then we have 1 secondary administrator, 1 elementary administrator. We have 1 teacher at the elementary, 1 teacher at middle, 1 teacher at the high school. And we have at least 1 parent from every school. And we also have a number of community people that aren't necessarily parents, but they have some kind of connection with our schools. They're not employees. They're community partners. So we have a real good start. We want to have about 35 or so.
Did you talk to any of those other districts that he had on the board and see what if they were happy with the WASB being part of their strategic plan?
So I've talked to a number of districts about this process, and yes, I have. I didn't look very carefully at that slide to see which of those districts, but I've talked to a number of them that have used WASB, and they were very satisfied with the process. Now, Dan didn't work with any of those districts, though, because as he said, this is his first strategic plan as a consultant with WASB.
Yeah, I just looked at when we used them last time for the evaluation process. I like the tool that they gave us. It's just, I don't know if I really like the guidance that we got from him. when we were-
And I knew that, and I understood that, and so I made sure that wasn't what happened this time.
So do we, I mean, are we still having too many questions to just look all this over again and delay it a month, or? I'm wondering.
I would hope that we are ready to move forward, since we
Well, I'm
invited all the
making sure
people to
board
the
is-
first meeting on
I'm
March
making
18th.
sure the board is all ready for it too.
I understand.
That's what matters.
We're just approving the contract today and.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Pace it moves
right.
at, you
As
guys
long,
I
I'm
think
just,
can go whenever.
When we
I'm
meet,
the guy
we'll
who
start.
throws the grenade out there. You land on it,
I'll
I
make a
don't
motion
care.
to approve.
And I'm looking, I was just scanning these documents here and I realize they're older. But, I look at some of this and I say, well, this is like your job description. So why is it a strategic plan? So I think it has to be something that has more thought into it. And I mean, a strategic plan looks out 3, 4, 5 years and has deliverables and measurables. I mean, some of this stuff in general is like, I mean, look at it.
Yeah, he wasn't happy with that one.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's not.
even the Birmingham one, if you look at a comment here, and one of them was, all BPS learners will demonstrate empathy as ethical leaders, they will embrace opportunities that positively impact the world.
I mean, those are definitely vague, but I don't know that right now we need to vote on whether or not we like these things. It's whether or not we want to go through the process.
I think if,
I would hope we have a process that has more teeth to it than what he's talking.
Well, we get to determine
We get
what's
to
in there.
determine,
I
right.
mean, that's what their process ended up like. I was not impressed
Yeah, I'm
with
not
either of
paying
those
him
either that
to
I
give us
looked at.
wishy-washy.
What our group ends up with will be what reflects.
and if you recall, I did share, and I can't remember when, I did share some other strategic plans from districts in the area in Waukesha County, and I believe some of you guys liked at least parts of those.
All right, we have a motion.
Make a motion.
Yep. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no?
And then I would strongly encourage that you let me know what your concerns are, so we can work those out.
Well, it
And
can't
be-
be clunky. Like Todd said, it can't be like the last evaluation process when WSB came in. 'Cause
Okay, so maybe I was wrong. Todd, I thought you were talking about when we had a WASB consultant come in and we did the board team building exercise.
No,
And so that,
no, the superintendent
So-
evaluation
No, because the
was.
pizza
that
was
you,
good.
you had, I think you had a concussion and you were
That's
out.
the one I
That's what
listened
we're
to.
referring to.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's what I thought you were referring to, Todd. I
No.
apologize.
No.
Okay, so tell me what your concern was then about the superintendent evaluation process?
I just like the tool, but I just
don't like the superintendent.
I didn't
It
like
just
the
seemed
guy.
like we were on the
Well, we were
hour and he
stuck
was gonna take an hour.
Yeah.
Ah.
It was just.
And it was just.
I hear
I'm
you.
gonna,
Okay.
I'm gonna make it quick, but really not.
we
and we're
walked
gonna
out
go
of there
slow
with-
and we're gonna.
Not really, not a lot done, and then we had to kind of pull something together, poor Jeff, with a bunch of our comments. and-
Right.
Yep,
Was all, he was just.
yeah, get to
So-
the point
That's just,
and
yeah.
let's get
Yeah.
moving. We don't wanna
One
dilly-dally and
person.
And with his
Okay.
fee
Explain
schedule on
things that
there,
are obvious.
I'm not gonna have a lot of drag.
we wanna get to
I don't wanna
business
be
and
his
get out
science
of there.
project for us being his first one, and, you know, it comes into $9,000-10,000 as opposed to, you know, lesser,
No.
that fee schedule.
Well, it has a not to
$750.
exceed amount, I mean, that's what
Right,
we just
I
approved.
understand that, but
Art
there's,
wants it 250.
there's.
What do you
overlap.
got for
Basically, we wanna get down to
250?
business when he gets here. We don't
Is
wanna
that
sit
not
here
part
and,
of this?
I
don't waste our time.
I don't think it'll be a problem. And then if you wanna just quick go to page 65 in the packet. And I think I've shared this with you, and that's the schedule.
Yep.
So our next board meeting is March 11. Then on March 18, that would actually be our first strategic planning meeting at 6:30, and we'll meet at the high school in room 42. That's the interactive lecture hall, the old band room. Nice big room for 35 to 40, a committee of 35 to 40 people. We would like to have a brief board meeting in front of that, because we'll have some health insurance information to share at that time. Then April 8th would be the next school board meeting. April 22nd, strategic planning. May 20, strategic planning. May 28, board meeting. June 3rd, June 4th, et cetera, et cetera. So I did, when I invited the committee members, I shared those dates with the people that
Well,
we
then we
invited.
should change them right now.
Yeah, that would be
Probably.
helpful, thank you.
I would like to make that motion.
You know how we roll.
Yeah, exactly. No good for you,
Alright.
good.
Did we vote? We're so far off track. Did we vote on this? All in, those in favor? We did? Good.
Yeah.
All right, we're moving on.
Oh.
All right, substitute teacher
Yeah,
compensation.
so Susan's here tonight, so
Hit it.
she has some data to share with you. If you recall, in December, we did increase our substitute pay by $10, and you asked, we had some discussion at that time if that increase was enough.
Right.
And so you said, let's come back, or have you guys come back in a few months and let us know if the $10 increase is helping. So that's what Susan has to share with you tonight. And that's actually a little bit later in the packet.
It's a yes or no?
So if you take a look at page 64, and then we have an insert.
Right, so I just want to go through some of the highlights on the very large 11 by 17. I blew it up because I couldn't read it, so I figured maybe some of you would appreciate being able to read the figures on the page. If you look at the top left-hand corner, what I've done is broken down for you the period from September to December 10th. If you remember, December 10th was the meeting at which we raised the pay rates. So I did before, and then I did from December 11th through February 18th, which is the date at which I
Oh, I
pulled the
love-
data.
Too bad it's not top out.
And then I did filled, unfilled, and then the totals for you. And so, when we look at the unfilled rates, we went from 5.53% unfilled to 3.70% unfilled. So as a result, there were 42 less unfilled positions between the two periods. Does that make sense? We're still averaging, so on the, next to there, you'll see that from the first period, there are 1,321 total absences. The second period at 838 total absences. So they're not exactly day-to-day, but just so you know how you're comparing those percentages. And I
So-
know Todd likes all this data, right?
So do you have any idea unfilled rate for what's normal out there in the other districts?
That's really hard to get data like this. For me to pull this data, I
Okay,
literally
no, it's just
took
a yes
every
or no.
day and pulled it day by day by day.
Okay,
doubt a lot of my counterparts are willing to do that for me. Down below, you will see I broke it out by month and by the type of absences. And in red, what I tried to do was to show you for each of the absences, what month was the highest. And for most of them, November skewed highest.
Deer hunting.
I doubt that most of our teachers go
Yeah, a
deer
lot of
hunting.
women go.
So,
We're not being sexist.
but I will
Sorry.
tell you, flu pays into this. You know, that sickness is, that's the type of time of year when you have a lot of absences. So overall, we had 2,159 absences. We average about 20 absences per day. Some days are higher, some days are lower.
Of teachers in the district, we average 20 absent teachers a day.
Yes,
How many
correct.
teachers do we have?
Approximately 337.
Okay.
That seems very high to me. Am I the only one that thinks that seems high?
It seems high, but
Seems
I don't,
high.
we need to put in perspective more, I don't.
You said 320 teachers?
337.
37.
What's that percentage, Tom?
Six.
I'm waiting for somebody to do it.
So,
6%.
so we want to make sure that we understand, so that's not necessarily people calling in sick on that day.
No.
Correct.
So a
Right,
number
it
of
could be
those 20 are on family leave. So they're
Right.
Yes.
teachers who have had a baby and now they're home on family leave. So if you take a look at our
Why are
daily
they doing that?
absent list today, you'll see probably 8 that are home on family leave right now.
So look down below and look at this, you know,
Yeah.
if you look at the number of absences,
Put out your
Includes
torch.
long-term.
it includes all kinds of
Long-term
things. So it
subs, yeah.
includes people who are out for surgeries, out for serious illnesses, out for babies, out for whatever reason. There's a lot of people that are out on FMLA. When you have a large population, you're going to have a certain percentage that are out for whatever reason.
Okay.
You can see that that is our highest number of
FMLA is the
absences.
highest,
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's not, yeah, the 20 a day is not really a reflection of people just calling it sick.
no, it is not. It's for a variety of reasons. I'm just giving you an average.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that judging by the decrease, the rate increase was beneficial.
It was beneficial, yes, it was beneficial. Do you have questions about the data that I've given you?
Very colorful.
What's your recommendation
I
at
like
the end of the day?
What,
So,
yeah. What do
If
we
I
need to do?
look at the recommendation, if I look across the rates, we are at, right now, we went from 95 to 105. If I look at the rates, right around us, East Troy's at 107, Waterford's at 123. KM's at 110, New Berlin's at 110, Waukesha's at 115, West Allis is at 110, Franklin's at 110. So, we're still not competitive. I mean, we're better than we were, certainly at 95. I would love to ask you for a $10 increase.
So you can cut that number in half again?
You know, I'm not sure the law of averages works that way, but I will, it would certainly help.
And Tom does have what that costs.
All right, so before this school year, when we started the school year, we were at $95 per day. And so we moved that up to 105, and now we're contemplating moving up to 115. So that's a 21.5% increase as we go from 95 to 115. Looking back at the 4 most recent school years that we have completed, it varies from year to year for the reasons of, as Susan said, if flu hits hard, things change. So the minimum cost increase would be $81,000. Max would be 125,000.
If we took it to
And that's for-
115.
If you took it to 115.
But what about 110 seems to be the most, 107 to 120, it seems like 110 seems to be about the median of this whole thing. Some are lower, some are higher.
110 would take us even.
Are you okay with the 110?
I'm okay with the 110.
We've already raised it 10, go another 110 to get up to where everybody's at, see where the numbers take us again.
So Susan, there's a
Yeah.
sub in Big Bend. They could come here for 107 or go to New Berlin for 123.
You can go to Waterford for 123.
Whatever, so, but really, there's more work out there than we have enough subs, pretty much, so they can pick and choose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, then I don't know if you have a choice.
110 seems to be what everybody's paying, except for you got outlier Waterford.
What worries me is Waukesha.
What are they at?
They're at
115.
115.
But you have to look at what we have, I'm not saying they're bad, but we have a great school district. And for teachers on call that are participating in there to come here and teach here for a day or an extended period versus maybe some other school districts, I think they take that into consideration versus the dollar amount, unless I'm wrong, Sean.
But
No, I would-
Waukesha's got a lot of schools that,
They do. For example,
There's nice
Waukesha
schools.
West is an
Yeah.
awesome school,
There's
not that far away.
and the elementary schools around that area as well.
So
Right.
I would say, though, that we are very fortunate to have eight schools with a lot of great kids and really some excellent culture, and substitutes do appreciate coming here to work. Obviously, if there's a significant difference between here and other schools that also have great cultures, they'll go for the other money. But we have a great group of substitutes that are pretty loyal. But there does come a point where loyalty doesn't pay the bills.
Throwing a donut.
Yeah, so I do think that another $5 increase would help to decrease the rate of unfilled absences, so we'd be happy to give that a try.
If
I
we
think-
look at the average is 112, 125. So I'm just worried about Waukesha. That's my biggest worry.
And where are they at again?
They're at 115.
Well, we
So we would be-
increased it and we saw the number go down. So even with Waukesha in play and still being less, we still saw a decrease. So,
And if this isn't enough of a drop over time, I mean, we can always raise it again, but we certainly can't take it away.
Right.
No, it doesn't
So-
work that way.
No, that's why I
It's
would
not like
like
we're
to
like,
make,
oh, we're over.
I would like
we're
to
going
make
back
a
down.
motion, we go with the $5 increase.
Well,
Can't motion it today, right?
Yeah, it's an action. It's-
Yes.
I did make it an action
Yes,
item.
it is.
Yep.
well, I know, I was just
And-
wondering, Todd,
and
did
I-
you?
I wasn't
he motioned
sure
first.
if you
Kids,
guys
who
would
cares what?
want
Oh,
to
yeah.
move
Really?
forward,
He did.
but again, since we had
Wow.
talked about it in
Yeah.
December, that this could be a
Yes.
possibility, that's
Yep.
why I made it an action item.
I forgot
Yeah.
it was an action item.
Do you want?
Did you want to take the
Yeah, I'll make
motion?
a
You,
motion to go to 110.
I won't second it.
then Art will second it.
Nope.
Art, you're good with seconding it?
Yes.
Yes, all right. All right, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no?
Thank you.
Okay.
So now we won't get yelled at when there's no gym teacher at Big Ben.
We didn't have one at Rolling Hills today, so might just be a different group yelling at you, but yeah, it's hard when there's no sub, and just for example, I'll use Eagleville as an example. A couple of times Val Voss, our principal, has had to go into the classroom and teach because we were short subs at Eagleville. So
Well, that's happened at all the school, I mean,
it has.
I know
and
Jim had to fill in the other
it's
day for
a
somebody.
challenge,
so-
yep. Yeah, high school administration has had to fill in a number of times. This will help. This will help, but we still will have some unfilled absences where,
That says a lot though
Kinda
for
part of the
our
job.
leaders that are educators to step up and say, I'm gonna go back to the classroom today and do this. I commend them for that. 'Cause
Right.
You're ever gonna be down to zero for,
No.
at all. I mean, I'm sure if you ask some of these other districts, they're probably sitting at 3%, 2%.
but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Finance and Facilities Committee update, the Blue Ribbon Commission on School Funding.
All right, so page 28, all the way through page 44, a lot of stuff there, but the Blue Ribbon Funding Commission got together for about a year, made some conclusions, gave some recommendations, and they're in your packet there tonight. So I'm gonna point out the ones that I think it's worth focusing on here. as we move forward and start to work with our local representatives here. So
And just a reminder, so we did invite our state legislators to the March 11th meeting, and so far we have one that's committed to come. So Representative Wickers from Muskego area will be here, and hopefully some more will commit soon.
Did you invite Cody and Alan? as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, we invited our 3 senators and 4 reps.
Cody's even part of this. He's part of the
I saw him tonight.
committee or he's on the commission.
Okay, continue.
all right, so I don't have these ranked in a particular order as of yet, but I mean, these I believe I'm gonna go through 6 of the papers, but 5 are directly related. Excuse me, 2 of the 6 are related, so I'm really talking about 5 things that we'll focus on here. Paper number 10 talks about per pupil adjustment and per pupil aid. So per pupil adjustment refers to adjusting our $9,400 per member revenue limit, all right? So through our previous efforts that we did, we lobbied and asked for that those at the bottom of the ladder, financially speaking, where they have the opportunity to move their per member revenue limit up, and we are in that spot right now. We collected $9,400 per member this year. We'll do $9,500 next year and keep
we
going up
approve it.
$100 every year until we hit $9,800.
If the
Okay.
board approves.
So we got
Right.
that, yeah?
Just-
Okay, I'll go quick here.
Just a footnote.
So I wanted to say that $9,400 is kind of, think of that as our main job. Okay, like if working 2 jobs, we have our full-time job. That's my analogy here. The per pupil aid refers to per pupil categorical aids, and that's a relatively new source of funding that was introduced in 16-17. We got $250 per pupil in 16-17, $450 last year, $650 this year. So that's kind of our part-time job. That's our side money, more or less. When that per pupil aid comes out, the big difference between these 2 is that if it gets put into the revenue limit, that $9,400 going up further, part of that's going to get funded by property taxes. Some will get paid by equalization aid. The per pupil aid comes solely to us without any property tax help along the way. So the Blue Ribbon Funding Commission recommended that increases come to the $9,400 per pupil revenue limit. I think that we need to recommend that we push for the increased per pupil categorical aids. It's a way to give us the money and leaving our property taxes as is. Okay, no increase on those. Okay. So paper 16 talks about a per pupil adjustment and inflation indexing. So the $9,400 going back to the 93-94 school year, our number was $5,300 some odd dollars, and over time that was increased. From 1998 through 2009, the revenue limit number was changed. It was linked to inflation. So CPI was established, and all school districts moved up the same amount. So all districts were given $240 or $260 or whatever. Typically, it ranged in between $200 and $250 in each of those years. So the commission is currently recommending that the legislature annually index per pupil adjustments for the revenue limit and link that to inflation. Okay, so I have no problem with that happening if that's what they want to recommend. It does increase school funding. It does have the potentiality to increase taxes along the way. We like to see those as low as possible, but there seems to be some commitment from people throughout the state to see an increased funding for schools. So if this is the way that they want to do it, I would be fine linking it to inflation. That's to ensure that we're not getting too much money relative to the rest of the economy and we're not falling behind. I think linking it to inflation is a good way to do it, and we did it for quite some time. So, yeah, I recommend that we would go ahead and go with those, and then that's acceptable way for us to push our per pupil revenue limit up annually through this indexing method. Paper 17 is the special education categorical aids, and there is some information in the packet later from Tim, and this is really talking to the same thing. We currently get 25% of our special education costs reimbursed to us 1 year later through special education categorical aids. Now, these costs, special ed costs for all districts, have risen over time, but for the last 11 years, the state has allocated $370 million and haven't increased that at all. So as our costs go up, the help to pay these bills aren't coming from anywhere. We're ultimately making larger and larger transfers out of Fund 10 into Fund 27 to cover the costs that are rising. So the Blue Ribbon Funding Commission made a wide variety of proposals. They're all proposing that next year's amount would go up. Currently, we're getting 25% reimbursement. For the biennial budget, they're proposing that you increase it by a certain percentage in 1920 and another percentage that's even higher in 2021. The lowest proposed increase for 1920 is 28% reimbursement. The highest proposed increase for 2021 is 60%. So there's a wide variety, and it all means help to help pay our bills. So I recommend that we lobby for any of the above. The Blue Ribbon Funding Commission made a wide variety of proposals, and any one of them would be acceptable. So I would say to our representatives, whatever they're comfortable allocating within the state budget, we would gladly accept any increase with special education. The Marquette Law School public poll came out in January, a recent one, and they did statewide surveying of information here. So I'll just kind of hold this up and show. This is asking folks throughout the state, do you favor major increase in special education aid? And 73% of all folks said yes, 20% opposed, and 7 weren't sure. Looking at it from the different political demographics there, from Republicans that are in red, 62% favored, 30 opposed. For independents, 65% favor increasing special ed funding, 25% opposed, and with Democrats, it's 89 favor and 7 opposed. So the bottom line is across the state, no matter your feelings on politics or anything along those lines, in terms of funding special education, there seems to be support statewide. So the question is, what form is going to come to us and how much? Obviously, the more the better, but it's up to the representatives who come to meet with us to vote how we want them to. But I'd say anything that they're comfortable getting behind, we would accept any increase because we could use it. Okay? Paper 28 talks about educator workforce shortage. Okay? So prior to Act 20, which was passed in 2013, there was a law that said ultimately when a teacher retires, they got to take a 30-day break in service. So teachers could retire June 30, take a 30-day break. They could commence their WRS pension payments, and then they could come back to work for another WRS position and begin working. So you think of a retired teacher who wants to start withdrawing on their pension but would like to come back in a part-time role, maybe in a full-time role. And they can do that, but currently they have to take a 75-day break in service. So if you retire June 30, you can't start working until after the school year already started. I think that 75 days is arbitrary. If a teacher has accumulated enough years of service to begin drawing their pension and they've earned that, I don't think there should be arbitrary rules that says, well, you need to wait longer before you can work.
What's the purpose of this?
I don't know. But if we have a shortage statewide, if there's people willing to work and they're good, hire them. Let's not let an administrative rule get in the way of any of this stuff here. So I think we should encourage our legislators to go ahead and address our workforce shortage and get rid of the 75-day break in service. Make it a 30-day break in service, and let's go to what we used to have. All right, 2 more, and then we're done here. So for paper number 12, we talk about negative tertiary aid. We've talked about that quite a bit in this room. If we spend too much, we shrink aid and increase taxes. And we've talked about strategies and ways we can always focus on maximizing equalization aid, because when we do that, that means we're minimizing property taxes. Because of the property value per student in our district, we are negatively aided at the tertiary level. So in other words, if we spend above $9,800, we start getting dinged, okay? They're saying you're spending too much based on how much property wealth that you have. So the commission heard throughout the state that if we go out to referendum and we're asking for an extra $100, because if that spending takes place at the tertiary level, it's actually going to wind up costing our taxpayers $120. So they'll say, hey, we'll give you the 100, but then taxes will go up accordingly for that $100, another $20, because we're spending into that negative area. So what they're proposing here is that that if a district passes a referendum and they happen to be negatively aided at the tertiary level and spend into that area, hold them harmless. Don't let that referendum be the reason why. If the community is willing to make an investment, don't penalize them. Okay, so I agree with that. There's a lot of things I agree with here. Currently, that $9,800, that secondary cost ceiling, is 90% of the statewide average. The commission's recommending that they increase that to 100% of the statewide average. So rather than spending up to $9,800 and having that be the dividing line between getting positive aid and negative aid, pushing that further, so maybe into the range of 10,000s. That would allow for us to spend all the money we get, the $9,400 per revenue limit, the $650 per pupil categorical aids, all the money we get, we can spend that freely without worrying about shrinking equalization aid along the way. And I think that's a good thing there. One thing I would like to lobby our representatives here when they come in is that I think any district that's at the minimum, $9,400, if you're at the minimum, you should not be negatively aided. I don't think you should get penalized for spending the minimum. I just don't think, why should taxes get pushed higher? There's nothing we could do to walk lower. There's nothing that, so I don't think we should get penalized for spending the money that's given to us. We're at the minimum. I don't think we should be having to give our money away just to swing the financial situation in our favor here with taxes and whatnot here. What I do want to just say here before I make a final conclusion on the negative tertiary aid, I do want a little more time to analyze our position here because there's 421 other districts. And every time a district spends into the negative tertiary level, they're pushing aid back into the pot. So I'll use Elmbrook and New Berlin as an example because I know their revenue limit is over 11,000, and I know that they're spending into the tertiary level because of that. When districts like them are pushing a lot of money back into the pot, I want to know how much money are they pushing back into the pot, because to some extent that is an advantage to us. And before I make a firm conclusion on this, I just want to analyze this and work with some others here because I do need some help with it. My gut tells me that this might be in our, this negative tertiary aid might be in our top 3 areas to lobby our representatives, but before I speak to that definitively, I just want a little more time. But I have a feeling that it's going to be very helpful to us. The last thing I'm going to talk about right now is the school levy tax credit funding. So when state government gives money to school districts, they're going to do it one of 2 ways primarily. They'll give it to equalization aid, or they're going to give it to the school levy tax credit funding. And what that means is that when property tax bills are administered, this form of aid from the state is buying down our property tax bills as residents of McGuanago. So it's not necessarily money that's coming to the school district. There's a tax bill that's going to property taxpayers, but state government is intercepting some of those bills that are being sent to property taxpayers, and they're buying some of that debt down or some of that bill down for property taxpayers. So when funding gets increased for the state, for the school levy tax credit, that money gets distributed around the state based on what's your school tax levy. So at $9,400, we're generating a very small tax levy. For a district that's got $11,000 revenue limit, they're generating a much larger tax levy. When this aid is given out to buy down property taxes, districts that have a bigger levy are getting a bigger piece of that. And I disagree with that. I don't think those folks need the help like we need the help. So, and watching on how this money gets distributed around the states, we don't reap very much because our levies are so low. Rather than increasing funding, if the state government's gonna increase funding, I wish they would do it through the equalization aid formula, where we could stand to reap greater benefits, and not through the school levy tax credit. Other districts benefit much more than we do. Not that I don't want to see it. Neighbors do good stuff financially speaking with other districts, but we could definitely use the help here in McGuanago. So the commission recommends that the legislature provide future increases in state support through the general school aid formula or equalization aid, and I support that. I'm with that. So in a nutshell, those are the major talking points that we'll bring. I know, I'm sorry, Mary, apologize.
No, that's okay. You
It's
got
hard
it.
to get through this stuff quickly and easily.
You didn't go through every single one.
No.
That's
There's
a good
some,
thing.
most all things in this report would benefit us. Some wouldn't benefit us at all. For example, sparsity aid. We don't meet the definition of being a sparsely populated school district. We don't stand to ever reap those aids as they become available. There's certain like bilingual, bicultural aid. We don't have a huge population of those students here, so an increase there is minimally going to affect us. So there's certain things we don't need to spend
You
any
hit the
time
highlights.
talking on.
You did good.
Can I, just an observation, I mean, it appears to me that the whole state budget formula for school funding is like a hopelessly tangled ball of string. And they're just trying to make something like this a little less tangled. I would prefer they throw the whole thing away and start all over, but I give them credit for going through the effort of
Yeah.
what they're doing.
from a simplicity standpoint, that would be the best thing to do. Blow it up, start over.
Unfortunately, in that scenario, there are winners and losers, and the state legislators are, many of them are not interested in doing that because some of their constituents, some of their districts will be losers in a new school aid formula. So instead, they come up with this, and a lot of these are great ideas, there's no doubt about it, but there is a limit to the budget, and we are now entering budget season, as you probably have been reading or hearing. So some of these are more realistic than others. There's no doubt that I think there's going to be some more aid for schools this time around. And I met with Cody Horlocker not too long ago, about a month ago. I showed him the high school, and he asked that we identify the top three. What are the three best for the Mugwanago School District? And I think that will be our goal for March 11, that Tom will have three identified.
Not six?
Not six, three for us. And
Doing it for the
I
kids,
think,
doing it for you guys.
I think the legislators appreciate that, and because they're hearing from not just our district, but all districts and then all constituents. Everybody has a need, roads or whatever it might be. And so there's only so much money to go around, so we should try to focus on what's best for us, top three. So we'll have that for next time.
Did Walker create this commission? Who created this commission?
Yeah, this was created, as a matter of fact, I think, Tom, you testified at one of the
Yeah,
hearings,
I
correct? Yeah, so it's over a year ago, and it was created by, when Governor Walker was, when Scott Walker was governor. No, it was a state initiative, yep. These are all state reps and senators.
There's going to be a wide, I mean, as Sean just said, all the representatives, the assembly people, the senators, they're going to vote on behalf of the people that they're representing. I called my counterpart, Marinette, who happened to be my college roommate. He does the same job I do up there. I asked him for his top three, and his top three weren't our top three. And they're a $9,400 district just like we are. So we'll see how this plays out. At the end of the day, I do think school funding will get improved. I built the budget that I shared with us here recently, assuming very minimal help. Anything that happens is only going to improve our position.
Okay.
The only problem that I really foresee is that this biennial budget gets approved after the school year gets launched. There's not a lot. If you give us an extra $500,000 or $1 million after the school year starts, where do we go? What do you do after when it's September 30th and you just found out you got money?
Sean will spend it.
Oh, he'll
I'm
try to.
confident
I
in
won't.
his abilities.
Yeah.
Give us the timing on the budget process again. I don't know that.
So the biennial budget is, ideally it's going to be done before July 1 when the biennial, when the fiscal year starts. But with the change in administration, the dynamic that we have right now, I don't think it's going to get voted on and passed until September.
Yeah.
If we're lucky, even August, but even then it's pretty hard. I mean,
We're begging.
the hay's in the barn August 15th for all practical purposes, and even that's pretty late. There's not a lot of things you can do strategically on 2 weeks' notice. Everyone's been hired. Everyone's signed contracts. The good candidates you'd like to interview are already signed up and elsewhere. So it's tough. But at the end of the day, again, I'm optimistic. Seeing some of these Marquette law school results makes me think, okay, statewide, just how people feel. So there's some optimism there.
I'm just observing that it seems curious to me that nobody on this commission is from either Madison or Milwaukee, the two largest school districts in the
I thought the
state.
same thing.
And so it seems odd.
Yep. A lot of people from those communities did testify, though. I was at Milwaukee Madison High School when I testified. I think that was their first meeting, so there was good turnout there. Wide variety of people. It was urban school districts, suburban school districts, private charter schools, independent charter schools. Everyone was there, so it wasn't just a narrow focus from one group. Everyone had a say, and everyone was listened to. I think the process was done well. Processes like this have occurred in the past with absolutely nothing coming up out of them, so only time will tell what actually occurs as we move forward here.
All right. Anybody else? All right, we're moving on. OPEB.
All right. So at the next meeting on March 11th, we'll have a finance facility meeting again at 6:15, and at that meeting, we're going to bring in Charlie Miller from Citizens Bank, and then we're also going to have an individual named Hans Anderson, who works for Greystone Consulting. It's a subsidiary of J.P. Morgan, and he is the investment manager for our Wisconsin OPEB Trust Fund. So all I'm asking these guys to come in, we'll open-ended, ask them questions. What types of things would prompt us to begin getting negative returns? The biggest thing we want to avoid is having negative returns. We can live with 1% and 2% returns. That's positive. It's moving us in the right direction. We're fully funded. We're not trying to close a huge gap. We're just trying to maintain at this point. So the questions I'd have for Charlie is what things in the economic outlook would cause us to begin going negative? How is our money invested as it sits today? Charlie Miller created a relationship here with the school district a long time ago, and it wasn't just Charlie, it was Citizens Bank in general, but Charlie has an agreement with us that our money is linked, the rate of return is linked to the LGIP, which is the local government investment pool. That's what a lot of school districts, government municipalities, they take their excess money, they put it in the LGIP pool, and whatever that rate pays, Charlie pays us 1/10 of 1% higher than that. So that's about as safe as you can invest your money, and Charlie's getting us a little north of there. So that's a good situation to be in here.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Do they have securities pledged for our funds? over
Yeah,
there?
they have more securities pledged than what we actually have invested with them.
Okay.
Every 3 months. That's a good question. I'm glad you're asking that, Todd.
For our, in our name, for our fund?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I get those statements every 3 months. We don't have an investment policy on file with Charlie Miller, and that's one thing I do want to ask about. I want to know what prompts him to change the complexion or the asset allocation across. So if you look on page 45, you'll see that we have 3 investment policies we can choose from with the Wisconsin OPEB Trust Fund with CISA 6. There's a moderate conservative investment model, which is number 1. That's where our money is. On the page 46, then there's choice number 2 and number 3, and those are just more aggressive models, and you can kind of see the distribution of how those monies are invested. The more money in equities or stocks, be it domestic or international, the riskier your investment becomes. The more money you have invested into fixed income or bonds, the safer you are, but the lower the rate of return is going to be. I personally just kind of get concerned. You know, I think all economic indicators are, after 10 or 11 years of sustained growth, this is the longest expansion in economic history. The law of averages say there's got to be a recession coming. So I just with that in mind, what would happen? Is this going to start giving us negative returns, and to what extent? What can we expect? So those are the conversations I want to have. This is something that we should be doing annually. I think we have a great deal of trust with our relationship with Citizens Bank, but it doesn't hurt to bring them in to have this conversation. And this is a step to take that we should take. So I know we've been building up and having a lot of conversations around our OPEB trust fund. We're in a great spot. Chuck Krieger, our auditor, said that tonight. He has no other districts that he audits that is in a funded position like ours. So it's one thing to build this surplus of money or to build this fund. The second thing to do now is to maintain it. So this board and previous boards have done a good job of allocating money to pay liabilities that are coming due. Now it's time to make sure that we don't watch this money shrink because of reasons that we could control. So that's what we're going to aim to do here on March 11th. Okay? Is there any questions about any of that? I think ultimately what we might do is just confirm our assets are good, our investments are good. Let's leave it all as is. And there's nothing wrong with saying that we looked at it, we investigated, and we're going to leave everything alone.
Or we let her snap,
We could do that.
get nutty.
You can make a motion, Craig, on that one.
Pretty sure Tom
I'll
will
let
lose
you
some
do
sleep
that.
over that.
Okay.
All right, 18-9 budget review.
So yeah, real quickly, we have board policy that says I give you updates.
Yep.
Here it is.
Quick.
So as of February 20th, what I'm giving you there on pages 49, 50 is I run my own analysis, my own data out of our financial software, and I take a look as to where we stand. From a student contact days perspective, on February 20th, we were 62% of the way into the school year, meaning we had 38% of our school days left. When I look at all of our funds for salaries, benefits, we should have at least 38% for salaries and benefits. When we talk about salaries and benefits for Fund 10 and 27, that's 75% of all of our money. So those are the most important things we're taking a look at. And we do have enough money in those budgeted accounts to ride this out here. I'm more or less just providing this to you to hopefully develop some peace of mind here, knowing that this is where our financial position is. In some situations, we have portions of our front end budget. For example, if you look at equipment, we had $1.455 million allocated. We've used up almost all that. We have $96,000 left, or 6.6% of our budget, as my memo stated. That represents buying technology, equipment, computers. We don't wait to buy that stuff at the end of the year. We buy that at the beginning of the year so students can actually make use of the 18-19 budget during the 18-19 school year. So when I take a look at all this stuff here, I look for outliers. I look for reasons why is the remaining fund balance percentage very high or very low, and then I investigate. I don't have any reason to think that there's anything wrong. I look back to where we sat at February 20th of last year, and we're in a good spot. So I'm just trying to develop confidence that we're on the right track financially speaking for the current budget year. So there it is. On page 52, I just gave a quick snippet of what another school's budget looks like. I'm giving you Parkview Middle School. They have exactly 38% of their budget left. But this is something I give to Luke Spielman every 2 weeks, and I'll do that for the rest of the year so he knows where his budget stands as he makes final budget decisions on things he'd like to do in his building. This is one way for him to understand that he has about $62,000 left, and he can make decisions between now and then, end of the school year accordingly.
Okay.
So that's just a simple update, nothing to do there.
All right, any questions? Cool. All right, human resources update. We talked about that. Do we need anything else for the substitution? Nothing, we're good?
No, we're good.
Yep. All right, people services, special education funding.
Sure. So
Need a
Tom alluded to
resolution?
this a little bit when he was
Yep.
reviewing his documents. So we have talked about special education funding before and the private school voucher program before, probably last September or so. And we said that we would discuss the possibility of having a board resolution to encourage our legislators to increase funding for special education. And so I put that resolution together. I modeled that after a number of other districts' recent resolutions. Thought that it would be more impactful if we would share it with our state legislators next meeting when they come, or during the budget season. Doesn't have to be next meeting. So we have a document from what used to be the Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance, which I've shared documents from them with you before. Now it's called the Wisconsin Policy Forum. They combined with another group, still a nonpartisan organization that gives us lots of great data. And so they have a nice article here that summarizes the state of special education funding in Wisconsin. And so we shared that with you, and then we have the proposed resolution after that. Don't know if you're still interested in pursuing that or if you have questions. Tim Lemke sends his apologies. He could not attend tonight, but if you want to wait until next month to ask questions, I can try to answer them for you, though, now.
I can answer them for
And
you
Tom,
too if you have any.
Tom is well-versed in this. I know you're surprised by that.
So I guess just to draw some clarity around this, the special needs scholarship program allows for kids to attend private schools as a special education student, and whatever those costs they incur to deliver that education, that school gets reimbursed for 90% of those costs. As I said earlier, public schools, we get reimbursed 24%, 25% of those costs. Why does a private school special ed student get that school reimbursed so much more than what we get? So I'm not trying to say take their money, but if that's the level playing field, then let's let our kids let us get reimbursed 90% of the costs. And that's truly at the heart of what this is all about. This, financially speaking, it's getting pretty uneven, and it's not even really close. So if we were to be, on the back of page 63 there, if our funding would get increased $4.5 million if we were reimbursed 90% of our special ed costs. So what could we do with $4.5 million in a strategic plan? I think we could do a hell of a lot of things, a lot of good things too. So, yeah, that's the resolution there.
All right,
With that.
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Well, I do think it's a good question
Well,
to
it
ask
makes sense,
our
yeah.
legislators next,
Yep.
next month. I am not quite sure the rationale on why they reimburse those students, or those schools, I should say, at the 90% level and have kept our funding at 24%.
Whoever owns
It-
them, that's why.
Well, and I think that's I'm wondering if they all even know. And
They
so
probably don't.
And I think that's a great question and to ask them. And I don't think it's realistic to expect 90%.
No.
I don't think that's gonna happen, but I think it's a good question
Well,
to
it could
ask.
be
and-
just equal with the.
Well, statutory, if it should be 60%,
Correct.
and we're not even close to that.
No.
So that was,
What
And as,
statutory limits are.
right, right, and as Tom shared in the document there, the Blue Ribbon Commission, they have a number of different proposals to increase the special education funding over the next few years. So, and I do think that will happen, but we need to let them know that's important to us. If it's important to the board.
the most aggressive one of the 5 recommendations the Blue Ribbon Commission gave for increasing special ed funding. Their 4th recommendation is to increase funding up to 30% next year and up to 60% the following year. So nothing they're recommending is saying, hey, take it to 90, but they're saying take it to 60. And that would be a huge relief. That would be massively helpful.
So it's not an action item tonight, but if you want to move forward with that, I will put it on the agenda for next month as an action item.
Does anybody object to moving forward?
And if you want some changes, then
No.
you let me know.
I don't object to moving forward, but just as an FYI, it was a resolution that WASB and the delegate assembly this year passed also. So that's something already in their back pocket that they plan on lobbying for too. So it doesn't hurt, we would be supporting it, but there is something officially on the books
Mm-hmm.
already.
All right, thank you.
Unfinished business, superintendent's report?
Yeah, so I had one memo, and that was the board calendar and the changes that we made to, so we can all participate in the strategic planning with the committee. And then just a couple of other things. I do have a document in there that shows the business after 5 at the Aurora Clinic on March 7th. So Tom and I both are attending that, and I didn't know if any of you would be interested. In your folder tonight, I also have an update from Pro Health talking about the hospital expansion. So a lot of new things going on with healthcare here in Mugwanago that we want to keep on top of. I do have an announcement that one of our librarians, Becky Bretza at Big Bend, who is really outstanding, has received quite a nice honor from, and I'm going to make sure I have the organization correct here, the Wisconsin Educational Media and Technology Associates, the Librarians Association for the state. She's receiving their Excellence Award. She'll be honored in April at a banquet, and I'll get you more information on that, but it's really a nice honor for Becky, who's been with us for quite a while and does a great job at Big Bend Elementary. Don't know if any of you have been able to attend the Addams Family musical. So really a fun show. I was there yesterday. The kids did a great job. I'll pass around the
It's,
program.
This coming weekend also.
And-
Yes.
Yep, this coming weekend.
3 shows
And
this
Mary, how
weekend.
many have you been to so far?
Just one.
So just one. You'll probably be at some more this
Or
week.
this
Yep.
weekend.
Yeah, so he's doing a great job. The whole cast, crew, and pit
we're
are doing a
planning
great
on-
job.
They, just as a side note, they do love the new director. They gets down there and works with the kids a lot more and shows them what to do, and they've been really enjoying this year.
Good.
So.
Good. Yeah, it's been a positive experience from what I've heard. Yeah, it's a great show. Last Tuesday, I attended Eagleville Taco Dinner. Really a nice turnout. It was packed at Eagleville last Tuesday night. So doing a great job over there. Staff, students, parents, participation rate, excellent. Not only a taco dinner, they raised some money for their sister school for a water project in Guatemala. And I'm forgetting the name of the school. Do you remember?
I couldn't say it for
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
And they had a nice
I heard
presentation,
it
but also
many
their
years.
science fair. It was really a neat night. And then also that night, I had a chance to go to the robotics open house at MHS. And today, I was at Prairie View for the Rotary Club donated some money, a grant to the Prairie View Christine Perkins, who's their librarian, and she's doing a VEX robotics activity with the kids, with the 5th graders. And it's amazing what those kids can do already in 5th grade. And then I go see the kids in robotics at MHS, and it's unbelievable. That is much more impressive than what I was doing when I was in high school 10 or 15 years ago. Lincoln Logs are about the extent of it. And then finally, our wrestlers had a real nice weekend this past weekend.
Yep. And the girls'
Girls
basketball.
basketball are regional champs. And so this coming weekend, big weekend for the girls in sectionals. And Thursday and hopefully Saturday. And the wrestlers will be in Madison again for the team state tournament.
Play Friday night against Milwaukee.
Their first game of the regionals on Friday, yeah. So lots of great things going on in the district with our students. Really a fun time to be working in schools. And I think that's all I have.
I got a question. March 13th is Day at the Capitol.
Yes.
Is there anything, if we want to go, that we need to do?
So I had brought that up a while ago, and no one had expressed interest. So if people are interested now, you need to let me know, and then I do have information on that. I don't have it with me tonight, but I can get that to you.
I'm interested.
Okay, great.
Could you share that with me as well, Sean?
Yeah, let me just get through correspondence, see if he's got anything else. And then we'll get back to board. Do you have any correspondence legislation?
Did I have something else I missed?
No, I'm
No.
asking you. I don't think so.
Oh, I did have one piece of correspondence. I'm sorry. I have a letter from a grandma. Did you see that, Rui? A nice letter that she shared that talks about a variety of things. Lots of great things going on at Rowan Hills and at the high school and at middle school with her grandchildren. So if you have some time, take a look at that. I sent her a thank you note.
Okay. All right, now board member questions.
Since we are 60% through the school year with the new principal in the middle school, is it appropriate for us to ask you, and how would you respond to us in terms of how is Luke doing? And is that something to address maybe next board meeting?
Sure.
I just think it's important to ask.
So Luke's done a presentation for us, and Val has done a presentation. I have Rachel, I think, Rachel Crockford, principal at section. I think she's in April. I have to check on the board calendar when she'll do her presentation, but sure, we can have that conversation, absolutely.
I just would want to know how
Mhm.
you think he's doing, and maybe
Absolutely.
that's for executive session. I don't know if that's for board meeting, but that's my question.
This is for executive, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, any other board member questions? All right, I'll make the motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no?
Everybody jump.
Everybody's
No,
like, no, we don't